How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many discounts will you stack up? Visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
Introducing the new Volvo XC90 with 7-seat versatility, Google built-in, and advanced safety features for all your precious cargo. The new Volvo XC90, designed for life. Visit volvocars.com/US to learn more.
With a major selection of the looks your kiddos love, starting at just $4 in the Walmart app, a new school year means a stylish new them. Who knew? Find skater skirts and Crocs that say, I'm casual but cool. Sparkly sneakers that say, it's my classroom, you're just learning in it. And preppy polos that say, I'm the teacher's pet, even if they're mommy's menace at home. Find their favorite styles starting at just $4 in the app. The Walmart you thought you knew is now new.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to YAOK. I am Erik J. Brown, and I am here with producer Matt. Say hi, Matt.
Hi, Matt. Oh, classic joke. We are once again down Alyssa, but this one's probably the bigger bummer of the two that were down Alyssa, because, man, was she excited when we had booked this guest.
Right. I feel bad, but you know what? She can listen as a fan. And it's not like we're not going to have Kiersten on. It'll just, be a couple years before she's back with her next YA.
Yeah, Kiersten will be back for sure. This was a delight. You've heard us talk about Mr. Magic a million times on this podcast. And this was just a delight. When we found out that she was putting out her first YA, I think I immediately leaped into action of like, I need to find who her publicist is and basically just be like, our podcast is obsessed with Mr. Magic. It's all about YA novels. We're so excited to have your client on. Please make this happen. Please, please, please. And they did. They made it happen. So here we are.
It was so great talking to her too. Like she's so interesting to like. This is obviously it's my first episode where it's just me by myself. And normally, like last time, I was like, oh, I'm not really sure if I can do it on my own. So producer Matt jump in with me and just kind of help me keep it going. This one I was like, no problem. I have a lot of shit I want to talk about. Just because like Kiersten's written so much and she's written for so many different IPs. Like I'm a big fan of Buffy. She wrote basically like the first original Buffyverse kind of spin-off series before Disney took over and started doing their own thing again. So obviously we've already talked about her on the show many times. So this was an easy one for us to do, I think. And it was a great episode.
I agree. So let's go to it.
5 long years, our lives like magnetic fields. You are my universe. You are my universe. And I'm just a planet.
I'm so excited to talk with you. It's wonderful to meet you. We're here, obviously, all big fans of you on YAOK. There's a lot of stuff I want to talk to you about, but let's jump right in and talk to us about your new book.
Yeah, so my newest book comes out September 9th, I think. What is time? It's called The House of Quiet. It's my first YA, my first individual YA to come out since 2022. So it's kind of a return to YA for me, which is really exciting. And this is a book that I have not figured out how to talk about yet. I always try and write down like a couple sentence, like elevator pitch. And this is one of those books where it's gothic, it has slightly dystopian elements, it has some fantasy elements, it's a mystery, but it's also a little sci-fi. And it's one of those where I'm just making librarians' job so difficult to know where to shelve it. And my own life difficult as well.
It might be easy though, because if it's like mixing all of these genres, they might know, oh, I know, there's like all of these kids who like these specific genres. So I'll just they're bound to like it. It's
Just
great.
put it everywhere. Yeah. So the premise of The House of Quiet, our main character, Birdie, her sister underwent what's known as the procedure. And when Birdie went to reunite with her, her sister was gone. She had been sent to the House of Quiet, which is a mysterious house for treatment for children who have undergone the procedure and developed powers too overwhelming or too dangerous to cope with. And so Birdie blackmails her way into a position as a maid in the House of Quiet. And when she gets there, nothing is what she expected. Instead of kids from her own poor class who have the procedure, she finds a bunch of wealthy weirdos. And over the course of trying to solve the mystery of what the House of Quiet is so that she can find her sister, she discovers that there's so much more going on than she ever knew about. And she has to decide whether saving her sister can be her only priority anymore.
That's awesome. And cover is gorgeous too.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, it's like a bird cage, and then there's like the little fun blood notes and everything.
Oh, that was a fun cover too, because my cover designer is Casey Moses, and she read and loved the book. And then we got Marcela Bolivar to do the cover. She does amazing gothic, creepy art. And it just came together so quickly, which sometimes covers can be really difficult to get everybody on the same page, to find somebody to work on it. And this was one of those covers that just worked out.
I mean, you have a lot of great covers. I think the cover for Mr. Magic is so cool. The cover for, is it Hyde?
Yeah.
Or is it Hyde? Yeah.
Yeah.
The Hyde cover is great.
Yeah, shout out to Scott Beal at Del Rey. He is a designer there. And both of those he just came up with. Mr. Magic was like a one and done. He's like, here's the concept, send it to us. And everyone was like, yeah, that's it. Cool.
Do you have feedback? Like, not feedback. Do you have, do you give any direction up front for the covers, or do they kind of come to you and say, here, this is the cover that we have in mind. What do you think of it? And then ask you for feedback?
Generally, I don't give very much up front because I learned with my first book, I'm not good at that. And part of why I love publishing traditionally with big publishers, they have these incredible in-house teams who are so good at what they do. They understand markets, they understand art, they understand how to convey things visually. And so I just trust them. Occasionally, I will give a few ideas up front. Like I have a middle grade series called the Sinister Summer series, and I sent them, I love Edward Gorey. I want it to be sort of an Edward Gorey and Lemony Snicket sort of aesthetic or sensibility. And we found the perfect cover artist. I will often be consulted on cover artists. So if we already have a direction, they'll send me a selection of artists and I'll get to choose from them. But for the most part, I leave it to the people who know what they're doing. Like I can do words, good at words, the rest of it, please get somebody who actually understands it.
Yeah, that's how I am with my covers. I only give feedback when they ask for it. Like if they're like, oh, do you have any thoughts? If I have them, I'll be like, here, these are my thoughts. But if I don't, I'm like, no, I think it looks great. Good for you.
Yeah.
Amazing. It's the one thing that like, I don't want any control over. Like I don't want that on my shoulders because I don't want them to be like, oh, well, it didn't do well. We think it's because of the cover and it was your idea. And now it's your fault that it's bombing. And it's like, no, it's bombing because again, you're publishing and you don't market things. We all know that's how it works.
Yeah, we all know that's how it works. Yeah, and I also feel like a thing that a lot of people lose track of is the cover's only job is to advertise the book.
Yeah.
Yes, you want it to be representative of the book. Yes, you want it to be beautiful or evocative. Yes, you want it to have all these cool tie-ins to the book, but it's an advertisement. Its only job is to get somebody to pick up the book and say, hey, this looks interesting. If it's done that, it's a successful cover.
Yeah, absolutely. What was your inspiration for The House of Quiet specifically?
I've always loved stories about powers and the cost of powers. And I credit this to being at a very impressionable age when the original X-Men animated series came out. Yeah. I was obsessed with Rogue. She's amazing. And just the idea that she has this power that's potentially stronger than anybody's, but it's just so destructive. And the personal cost is so high. And same with Jean Grey. And I loved that show. I loved the soap opera, over the top, aspects of it. And it was the first one that got me thinking like, oh, maybe maybe having magical powers, maybe being that powerful would actually be bad. And so that was something that stuck with me. I've always been drawn to the sort of like psychic powers. I had a series way back in 2013 called Mind Games, where girls can see the future or feel other people's emotions. Sounds familiar. I do like to come back to the same themes over and over again. And so with the House of Quiet, my biggest job was limiting it because I wanted it to make sense in world. And so I very quickly landed on all of the powers that the procedure can trigger. It needed to be mental powers. Like you can see the future, you can read thoughts, you can feel other people's emotions, you can push your own emotions onto other people, things along those lines. And so from that point, I was really just world building because I thought, well, if you could have these incredible powers, but there was a high cost, how would those be distributed? How would those be used? And I landed on the procedure, which is, like a medical procedure that you can save up and have your child go through, because it has to happen in a very specific window of time. It has to happen between about 12 and 14, because that's when the brain is most pliable and susceptible to it. Any younger and it won't work, any older and it will kill you. And then I thought, well, if you could have these powers, why wouldn't you want them? And, it's that cost, right? You're constantly inundated with other people's thoughts or emotions. And in the world of the House of Quiet, if you go through the procedure, the government essentially owns you. They get to decide where you work, what jobs you're doing, if you're employed by the army, all those sorts of things, because it's the poorest class that they're preying on. They're saying, save up all of your money that you've ever earned for a chance at a more stable life. And so that concept of really these kids are getting powers, but they are not in power and they will never be in power because the people who are in power have made certain that they're just a commodity. So it was informed by, this is how all my books happen. They're informed by something that I love, like the concept of power and powers and what that means. And then also something I'm thinking a lot about. When I was in the early stages of brainstorming for this book, I read an article about wealthy people taking plasma from teenagers in an effort to zhuzh themselves up. And I was like, they are literally stealing teenagers' blood because they have the money to pay for it. And that it's so predatory. It's so creepy. And it's so sort of emblematic of where we are, particularly in American culture, where people who have money or older people are willing to take literally everything from lower classes, from young people, in order to maintain the standard of living that they think they're owed. And that's the thing that pops up in a lot of my books. That was a very heavy theme in Hyde as well. But yeah, so those were kind of I love Gothic, I love creepy, I love houses that you really shouldn't be in, but you're trapped. So a lot of elements that I really love went into this one.
What is your process like? Like, how long from the concept that you kind of get in your head through all of the world building and then finally sitting down to write it? How long is that process for you?
It just really depends on the book. For the most part, I have ideas kicking around for anywhere from a year to 5 years before I'm ready to start writing them. Sometimes I'll get an idea and start writing the next day. But for the most part, I have bits and pieces. The House of Quiet actually started with a dream. It was not two teenagers, one sparkling like diamonds in the sunshine while they lay in a meadow. It was just,
that's such a good idea, though. You should write that.
Right?
Write
I should
that
go
next.
with that. I should go with that. No, it was just this dream where there was a young person and she had her hand up against a window looking out into the fog, and you could almost make out images in the fog. And I knew that she was watching the fog because as long as she was watching it, the thing that was in the fog could not come and get them. But as soon as she looked away, it would be free to enter the house and someone would die that night. And so I woke up from that dream and I was like, well, that's cool. I wonder what that was about. And that, obviously that there's no monster maybe in the House of Quiet, but that idea that that hypervigilance, that idea that if I stop looking, if I stop paying attention all the time, someone is going to die, stuck with me. And that idea of that house trapped in the middle of fog and you can't get out, eventually led me to set the house in the middle of a peat bog. So it's like unnavigable. You can't get to it. You can't escape from it because you'll drown and die in this infinite peat bog. Because I love the idea of being trapped without walls, right? Because they could technically leave the house at any time, but they can't.
Yeah.
So.
I love that. My dreams have to start pulling their weight around here. Because they're either the most dull, boring ones where I'm like running late for something. And it's like the job I had in high school. I'm running late for it. And it's like, I'm a grown-ass man, and that I should not be worrying about that still. Like, I want my dreams to be able to influence my writing. Do you have a spreadsheet where you save all of your ideas?
I don't, because I feel like if the idea has legs, it'll stick around. And I'll eventually find the pieces that I need to combine that idea with in order to have a full story idea. I can't even tell you how many documents I have that are 50 pages, 100 pages, where I had an idea, I liked it, I started writing it, and then I just wasn't feeling it, or it didn't have the weight to justify a full novel.
I have a whole folder on my computer, my writing folder, that says unfinished manuscripts. And I usually, there's like some things that when I'm writing them, I'll like kind of keep it in there keep it in just the writing folder for a while until it like feels solid. I'm like, okay, I'm actually working on this. I'll create a folder for this specific book now. And other times I'm just like, I haven't worked on that in about a year. I'm going to move it into the unfinished manuscripts page.
Yes. Yeah. And I feel like we know on some level there are some ideas that don't leave us, even if we think I'm not going to work on that. It just keeps popping up. And then there are some ideas where, like, I think it was last year, I spent a couple weeks writing like 100 pages of a book. I sent it to my agent. It had its own notebook. It had its own song that I was listening to while I was writing it. And then later that year, I was listening to Billie Eilish and the song came on. I was like, I swear I was writing a book to this song, but I remember absolutely nothing about it. Like, I literally couldn't even remember the characters or the concept or whatever. And that's when you know, like, that was never going to be a book. Like, it was just one of those things that happened and I let it go. But that's part of, I wonder if you're the same. Do you work very quickly?
Yeah, I work quickly and then sometimes not so quickly because there are days where as long as I have the idea in my head and as long as I know where the story is going, because I'm a pantser. Yeah. I like to just kind of sit down and I usually will have the characters and then the ending. And then it's just about me telling myself the story in my first draft. And I think that's why I have so many unfinished manuscripts, because at some point I hit a brick wall and I'm like, I don't know where this goes. Yeah. I know where it's supposed to end sometimes. And I just don't know how to get there. And so I'm like, oh, I'll just think about it. And then a new fun idea comes. For the most part, like if I have everything there, if I'm working to a scene, that going through up to it is like very quickly. And then as soon as I get to the scene, if I only focused on that scene for like a week, then all of a sudden I'm like, oh shit, well, what happens now? And then I'm like, I'll have like a whole 2 or 3 weeks where I'm like trying to fill in the blanks till the next one. I love it when things are coming quickly though, because that's when I feel like I'm actually writing something that feels not important, but important to me. Because it's like, this is the story that I think is going to be my next one kind of thing.
Yeah. Yeah. And it can be tricky though when you work that way, because sometimes you sell things before they're written.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I did that with The House of Quiet. It was just, we wanted to get another couple of books under contract with my editor, Wendy Loja at Delacorte. She's fantastic. I've worked with her for, I want to say 15 books now. We've done a lot of books together. I love her. She's brilliant. And this was kind of just let's get something on the calendar. And then when it came time to write it, I was like, I don't want to write this because, you know, we're all children at heart. And if you tell us we have to do something, we want to do anything else. So The House of Quiet was actually a pretty difficult draft for me. And then it was a difficult revision too. I did a big revision with my editor, and then my editor's assistant, McKenna Sione, made a suggestion when we were basically done, and I was like, oh no, she's right. And it was exactly what the book needed. It fixed every remaining issue with the book. And it was one of those like, oh no, just because you know when it's right. Because sometimes you get feedback and you're like, that's not quite right. But in this case, it was McKenna just absolutely nailed it. So I did another major revision. But I'm so glad, because this book was one of those that I felt like I was wrestling with it the whole time. I felt like I was fighting with it the whole time. And that can be kind of demoralizing when you're like us and when you are used to drafting quickly. When things click, they click in really exciting ways. And I end up loving books like this all the more for proving to myself that it doesn't have to come easily in order to be good. And it was this amazing moment when I was reading The House of Quiet for copy edits, and I was like, oh, I actually did it. Like, I love this book. This book is great. It tried to kill me several times along the way, but we did it. And I think that's one thing that, I've been doing this for 16 years now. I think The House of Quiet will be my 28th or 29th novel. I'm actually not sure. But it's so nice having these experiences to remind you that, like, this is a skill and we bring our own weirdness to it. We bring our own abilities to it. But at the end of the day, when you're a professional author, you can get it done, even under difficult circumstances. And that's always, it's nice to have those reminders. Obviously, we prefer the books that come fast and easy and thrilling, where you're chasing the story and you're like, oh my God, I'm a genius. But these ones that really make you work for it, I think, are also very valuable.
Yeah, I hate it when you're on probably like the second or third pass and you're just like, I hate this book so much. And it's like, you can't change it. You're under contract. You've already done this much work on it. They have paid you half of the money for it already. And you're like, I just have to get through. And I think there is, so far, I mean, this may change in the future, but I only have 4 books that are being published, I guess. 3 books that are published, 1 that's coming out in January.
You just said only, but that's legitimately amazing and impressive. And I think we need to put this in context for people.
It is, because, and I have to, this is something I work on with my therapist a lot. Yeah. It's telling myself that this, like that constant, what is it? What's the football metaphor where they're like, you keep moving the end zone for yourself or field goal, something like that. It's that. Yes, that's it.
We don't sports, obviously. If we sported, we would not be here, but yes.
We don't move goalposts. I just have a goal in my career. And it's like every time, it's like, it's just a constantly moving thing. And that is where I think that's where imposter syndrome comes from, where you are doing it. You're doing the work and you're successful at it. Mm-hmm. But you have this idea of success in your head. And if you are not meeting that, then you're still not feeling successful.
Yeah. Yeah. And that doesn't go away.
No, I know.
Yeah. It doesn't go away.
I think even like Stephen King, I think, said something recently where one of his books that came out, he was like, oh, I didn't know if I was going to be able to finish this book, and they had already announced it, and he was like, I was editing it, and which is weird because he does not edit usually, and he said this specific one he was editing and he was not sure if he was going to turn it in, and he had like forgotten. It felt like he forgot how to write, and I was like, Stephen King, who has been releasing at least 1 book a year since the 70s.
Yeah.
Obviously, everybody feels this way. So, I have to. I think I'm going to get past pages for my thriller that's coming out in January, and I think that will be the one when I'm finally in love with it again. Because I was like, I was doing the copy edits, and I was trying to read it from beginning to end for the first time since writing it, and I got probably not even halfway through, and it was 3 days before the deadline, and I was like, damn it, I can't read this whole thing in 3 days. I was like, I'm just going to do the copy edit comments and get this done back to them, and then when it's past pages and I don't have to do this much rewriting, I will then do it. So I'm hoping that is when I fall in love with it again. I was almost there. I was getting there. I was like, oh, this isn't totally shit. This isn't really boring.
Yeah.
My biggest fear is just a boring book. And I had to change this one specifically because the way I pitched it, they said it would be unrelentingly dark.
Ah, unrelenting. You know what?
Yeah.
Sometimes
everybody wants that now too.
Yeah. So there's a time and place for unrelenting. Yeah. It's always that balance, right? Of telling the story that you want to tell, but also being aware that ideally you are telling it for an audience and finding that way to have it still be what you want, but have it be accessible. And that's something that I come back to over and over again is accessibility, because I tend to get very weird. I tend to want to do really, really strange things, structurally, voice-wise. And part of that is I'm always trying to entertain myself, and I'm always trying to create a new challenge for myself. But readers don't want a book to feel like a challenge. They don't want a book to feel like a punishment or homework when they're reading it.
Some of them do.
Some of them do.
I mean, I'm not one of them either. So.
Yes, I'm not one of them. I mean, the fact that
the people
House
who
of
are still
Leaves,
trying to read Ulysses right now, they're the ones that like to be punished.
Yes, yeah. But I mean, you read like The House of Leaves and you're like, this is really cool. But you also, as an author, realize like that's inherently limiting your audience because there are so many people who just will not touch that. And so for me, it's always finding that balance between making the book accessible and making the book interesting for me personally to write and to revise. And so that's, I think, my biggest challenge at this stage in my career is that balance. And I try to read really, really popular things, and not from a critical standpoint, but from a what are people responding to in this? So like if there's a book that's just taken off, I don't care if objectively the writing is good or bad. I care about reading it and thinking like, what are people responding to in this? Yeah. What about this is making them love it and turn page after page after page and recommend it to everybody that they know, which is always an interesting exercise. I'm seeing early reviews come in for The House of Quiet, and they've been great. They're all like, I was so confused and I loved it so much. I'm like, okay, pulled it off. For at least that reader. But I want people to have strong reactions because, like you said, I just don't want people to be bored. I mean, I would rather see 5-star and 1-star reviews than 3-star reviews, just because I want people to have a strong reaction. Unless the 1-star reviews are like homophobic, and then it's like, jump in a lake. I don't care what you think.
Yeah, exactly. Go in a peat bog and disappear.
Yes, wander into the peat bog, see how you fare. But yeah, I want people to have a strong reaction to my books. How you get there is always the question, right?
Yeah. I feel like there's one book that, my second book, I get the strongest reactions from, which I think is fascinating because it's like my lowest stakes book. It's a kind of coming of age dramedy, and I pitched it as like Empire Records in an old folks home, and what I have noticed from the reviews, they're very divisive. People will hate the entire book and then love the ending, but like still hate me because the characters are messy and they're making the worst decisions they possibly can. And then there's some people who are like, oh, I love how messy these characters are. They are making the worst decisions and I'm here for it. And I really think it works at the end when it's like, okay, finally, they're actually like, it feels realistic and the ending feels earned. And I've noticed the difference is the adults who have read it as a YA are like, oh, I love this. And then the kids, the teens that are reading it as a YA are like, oh, I hate this. And I'm like, I see. So I did something right. And I think you guys should go back and reread this in maybe like 5-10 years and see how you feel. Because I think it's like, it's kind of, I'm not saying I'm like holding up a mirror to the microcosm of teenagers, but like, I do think that there are very specific teens who went into this book wanting a specific story and were disappointed by the story they got because they didn't want to hear that. They didn't want this kind of reality, I guess, where the adults can look at it with kinder eyes and be like, oh yeah, I was there. I made those stupid decisions because I did. I think we all did.
Yeah. No, it's true. And it's always interesting to me engaging with reviews, because so often people are reviewing books based on what they wanted the book to be and not what the book actually is, which is fine. You know, I'm never going to criticize how people review or how people engage with books. I definitely have gone into books where I thought they were going to be one thing and they weren't what I expected, and I was disappointed. So I couldn't engage with what the book actually was past my own thoughts and feelings on it. But a really heartening thing, if you were a writer with reviews, is you will have one review that's like, oh my gosh, the character work in this book was phenomenal. They all felt like real people. I felt so connected to them. And the very next review will be, the characters in this book were so flat and one note. They were like cardboard cutouts. I didn't feel connected to any of them. And you're like, well, it doesn't matter what I do. Because it just, you're going to get praised for the exact same thing that you're going to be just absolutely criticized for. And I think that's an important lesson to learn as a writer, is reader responses are outside of your control, and they should be. Readers are entitled to react and respond and feel whatever they're going to feel when they read your book. Our only job is to write the best book with the most integrity that we can, and then you turn it over and you write the next one.
Yeah. I read my reviews. I know everybody says you shouldn't, but John Waters actually says that you should. And he I think he was doing an interview. I forget who it was with, but he said that he made his entire career on bad reviews. And so what he does is he reads all of his good reviews twice, and he reads his bad reviews once, and then he puts them away forever. And I'm like, I like that. Because I think it's nice to have the outside feedback where you do have those good reviews where it feels like you're like, okay, yes, I did something right. This person is getting what I was trying to do. And then you have the bad reviews, which I have just started telling myself, and I just look at the screen and go, oh, well, you didn't understand the book. That's what it is. You're wrong. I'm not wrong. It's you. Okay. And then I'll just scroll on.
Yeah. But there's also, I feel like, value in consensus. For me, one thing that I found over and over again with one of my adult horror novels, Hide, is people really disliked the fact that there were not traditional chapters. Like, it really, really bothered not the majority of people, but a significant minority hated the fact that the book was not broken down in chapters, but rather in days. So like day 1 in the park, day 2. And when I was switching between points of view, it was like a section break. So there was a space. And then you were in a different point of view. And that really, really bothered a significant number of people. And I looked at other books that didn't have a traditional chapter break structure, and the same thing. There's a subset of people who, and I wonder if it's audiobook listeners, in part because that makes it more challenging to listen to the audiobook. And audiobooks are a huge portion of readers these days, which I think is awesome. Love audiobooks. And so when I went into my next books, I kept that in mind. And I was like, I will give you chapter breaks. You will get your chapter breaks. I understand that for whatever reason, this is hugely structurally important to a significant minority of readers. And I'm glad that I learned that and that I took that away. And I've been able to give that warning to other writers. I'm like, just so you know, if you don't have chapter breaks, there will be a significant portion of readers who will be very, very, very annoyed by that. And so if it's important to the structure of your book, ignore it, go for it. But if it's not crucial to the structure of your book, put in those chapter breaks. And I think things like that, for me personally, have been useful to take away from feedback, because, you know, it's a simple thing, it's an easy thing, and it's a good thing to keep in mind so that I know when I'm choosing not to do that, there's going to be a consequence, and I can accept that.
I think that makes sense, though. Like, I'm wondering if, like, it's also people who, even if it was an audiobook, if they're just reading and they're the kind of person who's like, oh, well, I'm just going to look ahead and see where the next chapter is, see if I want to stop reading. Yeah. Because, I mean, I don't think I would mind, just because I would then, if I realize, oh, there's no chapter breaks, there's like a little section break, I'll just look for the next section break.
Go to the section break.
Because I do that sometimes. If it's like, 1 o'clock in the morning and I'm like, I need to go to bed. I can't read another chapter. And I look and it's like, oh, there's 20 pages left in this chapter. Where's the next section break? Okay,
Yes.
a page. I'll do that.
Yeah. I cannot read before bed because reading wakes me up. My spouse falls asleep while reading all the time. I'm like, how? But he also falls asleep while watching TV, and he just falls asleep all the time. But I'm like locked in. If I'm reading a good book, I have to put it away for a full 2 hours before I want to go to sleep because I just can't turn off my brain. Yeah. Maybe there's a reason I'm a writer.
I do. I read every night before bed just because I think I just need something to. Because even when I stop reading, I am still up for probably like an hour just thinking with my thoughts. Because that's before I go to bed. I even like tell myself a story. Like I will sit there and be like, if it's an idea that I'm working on, I'll be like, all right, so this happens. That's where I left off last night. What happens next? And I'll kind of tell myself the story until I fall asleep. It's like you're telling yourself a little bedtime story every night.
Yep. I do the same, and I have since I was a kid. But it also is great too. I take what I call brainstorming naps, which usually are just naps. But what I do is I will hold a story or characters or a scene in my head. And I found sometimes, not always, usually it's just a nap, but sometimes as you slip into that liminal space where your conscious thought is sort of getting looser and looser, it allows that sort of dream space to take over. And I have unlocked answers to scenes or ideas or dialogue because I'm not trying to force my brain to do it anymore. I'm not saying, okay, we've got to figure this out. And by slipping into that liminal space, I then have the room in my imagination, in my head, whatever, to put in those solutions that were always there. I just was like blocking my way to finding them. So yeah, I always say napping is an important part of my process, but really I just like napping, but sometimes it helps.
Maybe I should try napping because that did happen to me once where I think it was on this book that's coming out in January where I was stuck on something and I couldn't figure it out. And it was in that like little twilight sleep where I was about to fall asleep and I like connected the dots. And you would have thought like a car backfired outside of the house or something because my heart like started like jolted and I sat up and I was like, oh, that's it. And I like grabbed my phone and I was like, I cannot forget this. But then I was like wired afterwards because I must have had like some kind of adrenaline burst. Yeah. And I could not fall back asleep. So then I started thinking about the solution. And because of that, I ended up solving like significant amount of things and probably staying up until 1 a.m. doing it. But
but it's legitimate. Like I've heard it from other writers too, like just slipping into that space where you're not trying to force something while you're still holding those characters in that story in your head. It really can unlock things in cool and surprising ways. And I'm sure we all have woken up to like utterly illegible notes from ourselves, or like I leave really creepy ones. Like my poor spouse probably wakes up and he's like, "What is this?" Because I'm writing creepy books a lot of the time, and so anyway, he wakes up to mildly alarming.
I can't write anything when I wake up. Like if I wake up and like think of something or like have a dream, if I go to write it down, I am up. I will not be able to fall back asleep. So if it's only 3 a.m, that means I'm up until probably 7. And so I was like, I don't even write myself notes. If I have a dream, I like wake up from it. I'm like, ooh, that could be good. And then I fall back asleep. That's why my dreams aren't doing anything for me because I'm not remembering them. Yeah. I always forget them by the time I wake up the next morning. I'm like, oh man, that was really good. Oh well, hopefully it'll come back. But
This episode is brought to you by San Pellegrino Ciao, a new kind of flavored sparkling water. The kind made with real fruit juice, a pinch of Sicilian salt, and the sparkle of the Italian sun. With no added sugar and just 10 or less calories per can, enjoy. With love, from Italy. By San Pellegrino Ciao now.
The McDonald's Snack Wrap is back. You brought it back. Ranch Snack Wrap. Spicy Snack Wrap. You broke the internet for a snack. Snack Wrap is back. Ba-da-ba-ba-ba.
Through the Starbucks College Achievement Plan, full and part-time Starbucks baristas receive 100% upfront college tuition coverage so they can focus on achieving their dreams, not how they'll pay for school. And those dreams might start with a degree in management, biochemistry, or any of the more than 150 offered. At Starbucks, benefits like college tuition coverage are just the start. Learn more at starbucks.com/partners.
Member Week is here at Lowe's. Don't miss your chance to get up to 40% off hundreds of items like paint, faucets, vanities, doors, and more. Shop our exclusive deals happening in-store and online now through July 18th. Not a member? Join My Lowe's Pro Rewards for free today and get ready to save more. Lowe's, we help, you save. Loyalty program subject to terms and conditions. Details at lowes.com/terms. Subject to change.
Reese's peanut butter cups are the greatest, but let me play devil's advocate here. Let's see. So, no, that's a good thing. That's definitely not a problem. Reese's, you did it. You stumped this charming devil.
Are you troubled by trying to find a great movie podcast to listen to?
Do you experience a love for monster movies from the classic Universal era to the modern creature features?
Have you or your family ever watched episodes of Elvira, Monster Vision, or Svengoolie?
If the answer is yes, then don't wait another minute. Open up your podcatcher and search for the professionals. The Monster Rally Podcast.
Our hilarious and asinine hosts have an ever-growing library of episodes for you to listen to 24 hours a day to serve all your monster movie needs.
We'll talk about it.
You also do, I'm jumping around now because this is one of the things that I really want to talk to you about because you do a lot of IP work,
Yes.
which for listeners, intellectual property, it means that somebody else hires you to come and write within the universe. You've done Star Wars, but you've also done my personal favorite, Buffy.
Yes.
I need to talk about that because I want to know how you got involved with that. I just want to know everything. How did it happen?
Yeah, so Buffy was obviously Buffy was hugely important to me. We talked about X-Men the animated series. Buffy is right up there as well. Buffy was one of those shows that, like, wherever I was making sure that I was home by a certain time so that I wouldn't miss the episode. I think it was also heavily influential on my writing. That combination of horror and humor, and also what was important to me watching Buffy as a teen. And Buffy has a complicated legacy, especially with the creator of the show. Yeah. But I prefer to view Buffy as the sum of its parts, the incredible actors, the incredible writers, costuming, makeup, like all of the people who made that show. Obviously, people are welcome to engage with it however they want. And I would never judge someone for saying, I don't want to touch Buffy because of the legacy of Joss Whedon. I respect that. But for me, it was so influential, and it really meant a lot to me. And so several years ago, I had a few books out, and I was at Comic-Con and I was wearing a Sunnydale High School t-shirt, and I met my friend's editor, and she was like, "Oh, you like Buffy?" And I was like, "Yes, I have good taste. Of course I like Buffy." And that was that. Like, it was a very simple interaction. She wasn't one of my editors. We had this pleasant interaction where we talked about how much we love Buffy. Fast forward a couple of years, and this is Lisa Abrams, who at the time was with an imprint of Simon called Simon Pulse, which no longer exists. And she got the rights to do a Buffy YA series. And this was before Fox was Disney. See, this is why licensed property work and IP is so complicated. So at the time, Fox was not Disney. Fox had the rights to Buffy, and nobody cared about it. Like, they weren't really, like, they weren't building anything with Buffy at the time. And so they're like, yeah, hey, we'll sell the rights to do a Buffy YA series. My editor got them. And so I was the first person that she thought of because I was open about something that I love. And I was wearing a nerdy fandom t-shirt. And I found a lot of my IP work has come from just honestly being open and vocal about the things that I love so people know that I'm interested. So she said, hey, would you want to write a Buffy YA series about a new Slayer? And I was like, yes, absolutely. And it was nice because it was very, very flexible. Because, like I said, at the time, Fox, the parent company, could not have cared less about what was happening with Buffy. And so I got to do basically exactly what I wanted. I pitched my idea that was, acknowledging all the seasons of the show, but also the first season of the comics that came after the show. I wanted my new Slayer to be the daughter of Buffy's first Watcher because I always loved the Watcher Society and the ideas behind it, and I wanted to delve more into that. And so I wrote this outline, I sent it to Lisa, she approved it, Fox approved it, everybody was good to go. And I sat down and I wrote an entirely different book. I don't know. This was my first IP rodeo. I don't know what I was thinking. I turned that book in and I got my editorial letter from Lisa that was basically just the equivalent of her going, well, why?
You did
what?
this?
Yes. And she was like, what happened to the original idea? I mean, like, I changed characters. It was a really, in retrospect, deeply unprofessional. And fortunately, I had an editor who was very kind. And over the course of a 5-10 page editorial letter was basically in the nicest terms possible, like, what the hell did you do, Kiersten? And I was like, got it. Cool. It's fine.
Right.
Don't worry about it. Never open that document again. I'm just going to rewrite the whole book. So I did. I rewrote it. I mean, I can't even tell you how weird that first version was. I was very into American Ninja Warrior at the time. I still am. And they went to an American Ninja Warrior gym in Ireland. It was messy. I can confidently say it was bad with a capital B.
It was a big bad.
Yeah, it was a big bad. It was, you know what? Actually, no, that's giving it too much credit. It was like a monster.
It was a monster of the week bad.
It was season 1 monster of the week bad. That's the level.
It was beer bad.
Yes, yeah. And so I rewrote the whole book. I rewrote the entire book using the outline that had been approved, and my editor was so relieved. And it was it was a good learning opportunity, right? Because I was like, okay, when you're working for other people, you don't have the flexibility to mess up big because it's not your property. And so I rewrote it. We did a lot of revisions, but I was so proud of it. And then I got to write the sequel, which went great. I did not write an entire bizarre, baffling book. I mean, one of the things that I did in that first version of the book was I tried to make it a plot twist that the main character ends up being a Slayer. So you didn't even find out she was a Slayer till like halfway through the book. And my editor, this is still one of the funniest editorial notes I've ever gotten. She said, I'm not really sure the reveal that Nina is a Slayer as a plot twist works, given that the book is called Slayer. I was like, oh my God. I felt so stupid. It was so embarrassing, but it got a good learning experience. So the second book went much, much better. And then that was when Disney bought Fox. And so then Buffy became a Disney princess. And the rights got really complicated. They were like, you can keep doing the series, but on a different timeline, and it just didn't work with my schedule anymore, so I had to let it go. But I love those 2 books. I'm so proud of them, and it meant the world to me to be able to contribute to a story that was so foundational to me as a storyteller. And I think that's one of the cool and exciting things about doing licensed property work is it is such a creative challenge, right? Because you're trying to find a space within an existing world and an existing storytelling to tell a story that hasn't been told before, but that feels like it always belonged there. But the thing that I always think when I go in is I want you to feel the way you felt when you were watching this show. So for Buffy, even though Buffy's not the main character, she is barely in it. It's entirely new characters with cameos. I was like, I need you to feel the way you felt when you were watching Buffy. I need you to feel like you are somehow invited in to this charming, witty, messy, group of friends and you're part of it. And what part of what Buffy did so well was that sort of like in language, right? Where they almost had their own mannerisms. They had their own way of speaking. And when you were watching, you were invited into that and you were in on the joke. And so that's what I tried to capture. And it's the same when I was writing Star Wars Padawan. I was like, I can't mess with lore. I can't mess with canon, but my biggest goal is to make it feel like this story, this part of Obi-Wan Kenobi's life was always there. You just hadn't heard this particular adventure yet, and make sure that it felt the way that I felt, as a child, as a teen, as an adult watching Star Wars. And that to me is the challenge of IP, and what's so exciting about it is trying to capture, because usually you're working in a different medium than the original too, like trying to capture what made it special, what drew you to it in the first place in a different format or in a new story that nobody's heard before.
Yeah. I always like it when I don't want to badmouth any books, but I'm not badmouthing it. I will say, like, I read the Veronica Mars novels that came after the movie. And I remember being disappointed in it because it didn't have that voice. Yeah. It was, for some reason, told through third person, which the entire series and movie of Veronica Mars was told from Veronica's point of view. Like, yes, we saw other characters' points of view, but it was that noir, like, voiceover that was always there. And so when I started reading, I think it's called like The $1 Million Tan Line, I immediately was taken out of it. And I was like, oh, this isn't what again, we were talking about like being disappointed because it's not the book that you wanted. It's like, that's one of those things though, where you had to have the voice in order to make that work, because that is what one of the strongest aspects of Veronica Mars is that voice. It's Veronica's voice, and then Gossip Girl's voice it eventually became. But that was, I think you're completely right, where you have to have, it just has to feel like it is the same crew of people involved in it, even though it's you yourself instead.
Yeah. And it's challenging. It's not always fun either. IP work is very hard. It's usually very tight timelines. You don't have as much control or say. And, I'm the type of person where I like those challenges, but it's not for everybody. And I put myself out there for IP work. I pursued Pokemon very heavily. I wanted to write an original Pokemon YA novel. And I had connections at Scholastic. They published all the like Pokemon tie-in books. And I was like, hey, I want to do this. And they were like, send us a pitch. I sent them the pitch. They were excited about it. And it was right after Detective Pikachu came out. So I was like, they're opening up the IP. And they sent it up the ladder to, whoever is the very best, like no one left before.
Pokemon himself.
Mr. Pokemon himself. And they said no. They said that I could write an adaptation of one of the animated series if I wanted to, but they weren't going to do new storytelling within it. And honestly, I respect that so much. I respect a company that has so much potential with their IP, and they're very protective of it. Like, they're not going to farm it out wherever they can to make money. And I respect that a lot. I am still a little bummed because I wanted to write that novel. But so it doesn't always work, right? Like, I've had Disney reach out to me and they're like, do you want to write this book? And I'm like, yes, absolutely. And then 3 weeks later, they're like, just kidding. We gave it to someone else. And I'm like, cool, thanks, guys. And it happens. It's just part of it. And part of being able to write for licensed properties is the flexibility and the availability, and knowing that it's not going to be on your timeline. For example, with Star Wars, I have friends who wrote for Star Wars, and I wanted to. I love Star Wars. It was one of my very first fandoms as well. We had like the laser discs when I was a child, and I would watch them on repeat over and over. Yes, way back there. So I was able to set up a call with the Star Wars storytelling like book people, and they were like, hey, what are you interested in? And I was like, well, I have an entire outline for a teenage Ben Solo novel. And they were like, why do you have that? And I was like, that's a good question. They weren't interested in that, but they were like, we're so glad that you're interested. We will be in touch when we have a project that we feel like is right for you. 5 years later, 5 years later, they emailed me, and I was like, okay, cool. And it was for Teenage Obi-Wan Kenobi, which I was so excited about. And so it's just kind of one of those things where you put yourself out there, you let people know what you love. If you see an opportunity, you say, hey, pick me. Most of the time, no matter what your resume is, they will not pick you. But sometimes they will. And it's cool when it happens. It's great work if you can get it and if you can work on that schedule. And if it's not the type of work you can do, that's okay too, because it's really hard and it generally doesn't pay great.
Yeah. Is there any, I know you said Pokemon, but is there any other like IPs that you haven't been reached out to yet, or like that you would, like you have ideas, or even just you don't have an idea where you're just like, I would just love to play in that sandbox? Like,
Yeah. I'm so open and I love so many things that usually when people reach out to me, I'm like, yeah, absolutely. I have had a couple of things where they've reached out to me. I'm like, I don't even know what that is.
oh, no.
And I don't think I could get interested in it quickly enough to write it.
Yeah.
I have a couple of actually IP things that have not been announced yet. But for the most part, if I want something, I'm going to be public about it and I'm going to get it. I mean, every once in a while there will be something where I'm like, like I would love the Wednesday series on Netflix. I was like, I would write a killer Wednesday novel. But I don't think it should go to me. I think it should go to a Latinx author, given that they cast Jenna Ortega. And so that's part of it too, is acknowledging like some of these things that I love. Like, I think they should go to other people, and I'm not gonna throw myself in the way of that, essentially. So yeah. That being said, what would I die to write in? I don't know. I feel like, I mean, I already got Buffy and Star Wars, so I feel like claiming anything else would be greedy. But if they come to me,
would you go back to Buffy if like, because I know that there's the reboot series they're doing. Yes. Like if Disney was like, you know what, we're also going to do some tie-in novels like we did back in the day.
Yeah.
Would you do that?
I mean, there have been a few Buffy series recently. Kendara Blake wrote one. And those were great. Who else has written them? Now my Lily Anderson, my brain is blanking on all of them, but William Ritter. There have been some great ones. The thing that's kind of breaking my brain is they announced the casting for the new Slayer in this Buffy sort of it's not a reboot, it's a revamp. And yes, and the new Slayer, her character's name is Nina, which is the name of my Slayer in Slayer Unchosen. And I don't think, I mean, obviously it's not my property. They could take the books and use anything they want from them. I have no say in it, and it wouldn't bother me because again, it doesn't belong to me. But I was like, Nina. So actually what I want them to do is call and ask me to be in the writer's room for the reboot.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah. I think all of us, there are literally thousands of us who are like, you know who would be great for that writer's room? Me. Even though I have zero TV writing experience, we'll just set that aside.
I did it in college. I got it. I figured it out. I know how to write screenplay.
I've read some screenplays. The original version of Mr. Magic had an entire section that was written as a screenplay. Which, speaking of things that I had to edit out. But yeah, I don't know. It would depend on the timing. Right now, I have 8 active projects. I actually had to sit down yesterday because I was having a little bit of a mental breakdown and write them all out, including the dates associated with them, just to make sure that I could physically do it all, and I can. But that's the other thing with offers, because I do get approached about things, and it really just depends on the timing. Because I'm busy.
Well, if they approach you for a Buffy book and you're too busy, send them my way.
Yes, yeah.
I mean, I know Kendara Blake already has success with it, but let me try it. It'll be fun.
Yes.
I actually was at a book festival and on a panel with Kendara like maybe 2 months ago. And like, on my way down there, I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to talk to her about Buffy. And I was like really excited. And then I just completely forgot. I didn't even get to talk to her about it. I was like, I was on the plane back. I was like, God damn it, I forgot. Ugh. We were like on a panel talking about other things. And it was, did you watch the Apple TV show or movie, The Gorge?
Yes.
So she and I started just talking about that. We took our panel, I think was like, I think it was like a romance panel. And I started talking about the fact that that movie, the first half was great. The romance part. I was like, I love this. And then as soon as they go into that gorge, I was like, this movie sucks. I hate this. This is so boring. Like, how is it when the monsters show up, it got boring? And Kendara agreed. She's like, yes, it's a great first act romance. And then it just falls apart at the end. And we were like talking about that. But I think it's just the fact that I went on this whole tirade about the gorge. I totally forgot to talk about Buffy.
The Gorge, it ruined your chance. It ruined your chance. The Gorge made me want to rewatch Annihilation, which is one of my favorite movies, which I did recently rewatch on my birthday, for my birthday. I'm like, happy birthday to me. We're rewatching Annihilation. Just a feel-good romp. I think it says a lot about me that my comfort movies are like Midsommar, Annihilation, John Wick. Like,
I love the people that choose Midsommar as a comfort watch. It's like, oh, well, actually, you know what? That's a good little segue, I think, into Mr. Magic, because I know why you like Midsommar. Sorry, Midsommar. So I've already said the reason I even read Mr. Magic was it was on my TBR list for forever, probably since it came out, and then Alyssa, my co-host, who sadly is not here today, she's gonna be so sad that she missed talking with you about it. She had it she read it last year, and I think on the recommendation of producer Matt, who loved it as well, and she chose it as one of her favorite books of last year that she had read. And I was like, you know what? Just since the two of you are saying that, I'm like, I'm gonna read it this year too. I think it was the first book I read this year, and I loved it. I knew I was going to. It's just, you know how TBR piles are. Yes. It's just like you stack them up and you're like, oh yeah, I really want to read that one. Oh, I just got this new book and I'm going to read that first. I did not know any backstory of Mr. Magic at all. And then I think there's a part where you say, like one of the characters says they should be in the world, not of the world. And I immediately was like, wait, is this about being ex-Mormon? And I because that's like such a like Mormon saying. And I only knew that because of my ex-Mormon friends.
Yeah.
And I was like, holy shit, is this about being ex-Mormon? And then I think I looked up somewhere, I think maybe there's a Wikipedia page on it that said that you had said that it was about about growing up in the Mormon church and you left. Was that something that was Mr. Magic one of those ideas where it like came to you and you're like, ooh, that's it? Or was it there for a while because of growing up in the Mormon church where you're like, I have to figure out something. I want to figure out something to do with that.
Yeah. Mr. Magic was a very kind of roundabout process. For a long time, I was not ready to engage with religion or religious trauma in any sort of direct way. I mean, I'm still not. Mr. Magic is a very sideways engagement with it. But you know, it's things like looking back and being like, oh, my Buffy the Vampire Slayer books are about being raised in a tight, closed community and thinking that it's exactly correct and everything they do is right. And then all of a sudden one day realizing, oh, this is not good, actually. This is harming a lot of people, including me. And I didn't realize that when I was writing it. It's so funny, these things that we do where like, you think you're just writing like a fun Buffy the Vampire Slayer book, and then you're like, oh, there's all of my personal trauma woven into everything. And with Mr. Magic, it didn't start out that way. So Mr. Magic, I got the idea. My spouse was in the kitchen making dinner, and he said, wouldn't it be funny if the cast of Barney reunited as adults and realized that it had been real the whole time? And I was like, yeah, because one of them kept reaching out, frantically trying to get the others to contact her, and they never did. And then she's found dead with bite marks matching a dinosaur that hasn't existed in tens of millions of years. And he's like, why do you always make things so creepy immediately? And I was like, you married me. But then I was thinking about that, like, you know, what if you were a child star? What if you were on a show as a child that was this make-believe show, and then you realize as an adult that all these things you thought were make-believe were never make-believe? And I was thinking about a lot of different things at the time. I had recently had a conversation with a writer who worked on one of the Disney Channel shows with one of the big Disney Channel child stars, and he said it actually made him leave Hollywood because he said it was so creepy watching the way that adults engaged with this child because their livelihoods and their incomes depended on this child. So this child was never treated as a child. He was fawned over, and he was, you know, it was just, he said it made him so uncomfortable. It wasn't outright abuse, although it came out later that the child was being abused by his family. But he said it wasn't outright abuse, but the whole thing just made him feel sick inside. And so he left Hollywood. Yeah. So then I was thinking about child stars and things we do to child stars. And I was thinking about parenthood and the way so many parents treat their children not as actual human beings who are autonomous and who will grow into fully realized human beings, but as property or as like a concept, right? Like, here is my child, and he or she will grow up to be exactly who I have decided they will be. And I was thinking about, you know, like all of these different things. I was thinking about parasocial relationships. I was thinking about toxic nostalgia. And so the first draft of that book was a hot mess because it was so unfocused. It was another full rewrite. So the first draft of that book has another character, another one of the friends who I cut her out entirely. I combined her character with Jenny. Just for those who haven't read Mr. Magic, the premise of Mr. Magic is that 30 years ago, the longest running children's program in television history ended abruptly with no warning in tragedy, and the child stars were scattered and they never saw each other again. And it's one of those shows that everybody grew up watching, but nobody has any evidence of it. You can't find it on YouTube. Nobody knows who the production company was. Nobody knows who wrote it. Nobody can remember whether Mr. Magic, the titular character, was a puppet or early CGI or an actor in costume. And everybody sort of has these apocryphal accounts of like, they saw the last episode where Kitty disappeared, or, you know, so on and so forth. And the cast 30 years later are all kind of nearing 40 and wondering why they lost all of this magic and potential that they felt they had as children, and blaming the ending of the TV show for that. And they're reunited by a podcast to talk about the show and delve into what it was. And so they all agree, trying in the hopes that they can sort of resolve all of these issues and ideas and feelings that were left unaddressed when the show ended so abruptly. And so the initial version, I also did some really weird structural things. Part of the point of view would switch to a screenplay because I wanted to capture that sense of voyeurism, because I've been thinking a lot about, particularly with reality TV, particularly with children being used by influencers, being used by reality TV, these sort of parasocial relationships where you're watching them, you're consuming their lives as entertainment, which I find deeply creepy. But it didn't work. I turned that draft into my editor, and she was like, the screenplay portions, I feel like it takes us out of the narrative every time, which I agree. I have since read a horror novel that used screenplay, and I was like, oh, it creates a distance. If you're doing that deliberately, fine, but I wasn't. So that was another one where I rewrote the entire book. About 5% of it stayed the same, and the rest was a complete rewrite. Because I needed to write that messy, unfocused version in order to realize that the heart of the book was not about being a parent. It was not about child stardom. It was not about, parasocial relationships. It was in part about toxic nostalgia, but the core of it, for me personally, was about religious trauma, about being told as a child, there's only one way to be a good person. And if you deviate from that, you're broken and wrong and not good anymore. And So that then informed the next version, which was the version that I was hoping to tell the whole time. So that was definitely one where I had to sort of like work my way into figuring, I had to do it wrong in order to figure out what the book was actually about. And reactions to that book are so interesting because depending on how people respond, I know whether or not they have religious trauma. Because a lot of people are like, wow, this book was really trippy and weird and creepy. It was great. It was really fun. And then people are like, oh my God. The moment it clicked for me in this book, I started shaking. I felt sick inside. Like and by the end, they didn't feel that way anymore. But it is really interesting. People have like such distinct reactions depending on whether they come from a background of having been raised in a high control religion or did not. And I think that's one of the fun things about writing and about horror in particular is. I don't know if you saw the movie Heretic with Hugh Grant.
No. I heard that. I heard that it is like the beginning, like the first 20 minutes or so are really good, but then apparently it goes off the rails, like not in a fun way. It gets kind of boring. People have said.
I loved it. The main characters are sister missionaries from the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormon Church. Yeah. And it was written by people who are married to ex-Mormons, and the actresses are were both raised Mormon. And so if you have that background, there is so much in that movie where you're like, oh, I can't believe they just did that. Or like, oh my God, like it's an inversion of this specific religious rite and rituals that we did. And like, it's brilliant if you're ex-Mormon. And I think, or if you're Mormon and you're flexible. And I think, I think it's a fine horror movie if you're not. And that for me is always an interesting thing where if you have the experience that is being explored, it hits different. But the goal is always, if you don't have that experience, it's still a fun, creepy, exciting book. But if you have that experience, you get that extra level of, oh, I know exactly what she's doing here. And it is fun talking with people who have a similar background to me, especially with, I hear a lot from ex-evangelicals and those types, but ex-Mormons specifically, they're like the children's songs. And I was like, yep. My job in the church was I was the children's song leader. I did children's song time with the kids, and we did our little songs that teach them moral values. And even when I was an active Mormon, I was like, I'm going to edit out that gender roles verse. But yeah, it was one of those books that I'm deeply proud of it. And as soon as it came out, I was like, I wish that I had never written this book. Because I realized that I was not ready to publicly talk about those things in the way that I then had to. I'm okay with it now. I've come to terms with it. But sometimes we write too much of ourselves in books and then we have regrets. But you want to write with integrity and you want to write where your heart is. And sometimes those are difficult places. And I don't regret it. But I definitely needed a palate cleanser after that one.
Was it cathartic for you before it came out? Because I feel like after it came out, it kind of then brought a lot of stuff back that you were just like, oh, I really didn't want to analyze this in a public stage kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes, it was definitely cathartic to write, especially the ending. I cry every time I read that ending. In every revision, I cried when I got to that ending. It's currently being adapted for a graphic novel with 10 Speed Press, and with the same team who did the Hyde graphic novel. Veronica Fish and Andy Fish and Scott Peterson is the adapter. It's phenomenal. They're an incredible team. And I still cry every time. Like, I'm just reading the graphic novel script and I get to the end and I'm crying. Because it's so deeply personal, and it's what I wish somebody had told me years ago, right? Like, I wish somebody had given me permission to just exist and be myself. And that was enough. And so I always kind of view Mr. Magic as, yes, it's horror. Yeah, it's trippy and weird and upsetting. But in the end, I hope it feels like a hug. It feels like somebody giving you permission to be yourself. And that was really important to me. And I do deeply appreciate the DMs and the notes that I get from people who feel seen by it, because so much of what those religions depend on is isolation. You're not allowed to talk about your feelings. You're not allowed to talk about your experiences. And when you can break out of that and see those experiences reflected to you from other people, I think that can be tremendously healing. And it has been for me as well.
Yeah, that's great. Before I let you go, I just realized now we've been talking for over an hour. See, yes, we filmed and recorded another podcast a couple days ago, and I asked Matt to kind of sub in for Alyssa because I've never done the podcast alone, and I just didn't want to be like, what if I don't know what to say next? And I was like, he asked me, he's like, do you think you could handle it solo today? I was like, yeah, I have a lot to talk to Kiersten about, so don't worry about it. But before I let you go, I do want to know, what are you reading right now?
Oh, so I just finished, speaking of horror being cathartic, I just finished You Weren't Meant to Be Human by Andrew Joseph White, no relation. It is not YA. Do not give it to a teenager. And also, it's one of those books that I can only recommend with like a huge asterisk. Please read the content note in the beginning. This is horror that just is relentless and brutal and bleak and harrowing, but also somehow, because of that, I think is one of the most deeply human and empathetic horror novels I've ever read. Because it's like, look at the worst parts of this human being and look at these horrible things that they're going through because of these things that they feel like they deserve or don't deserve. And I think there's something so freeing that fiction can do when it says all of these parts of yourself that you want to look away from, we're going to look closer. We're not going to look away from them. We're going to make you look so close that it becomes uncomfortable, because it gives you permission to be human, right? It gives you permission to acknowledge the worst parts of yourself, the worst things you've ever thought or felt or done. Those exist. They happened. They happen. You're still a person, and you're still worthy of love and of respect and of existence. So I was really kind of blown away by it. It's very weird. It's a very, very weird novel, but it was one that I know will stick with me for a really long time. I also just finished I went on a big binge of Megan Whalen Turner's The Queen's Thief series, which polar opposites. This is a YA fantasy series, like very low fantasy though. The fantasy elements of it are very subtle. Just phenomenal. Megan Whalen Turner is a brilliant writer. She pulled something off with The Thief, which is the first book, that should not be possible. And on a craft level as an author, I was like, I can't. I immediately emailed her and I was like, I can't believe you pulled that off. I cannot believe you didn't cheat and that worked. I don't know how you did it. I'm kind of mad, but in a really respectful and admiring way, because I don't know how she did it. Anyway, if you're looking for like a fantasy series that is incredibly well written and will surprise you throughout, the Queen's Thief series, phenomenal.
I'm writing that one down because it sounds great.
Yes. Okay. And when you read the first book, when you finish, send me a message, because you too will be like, she didn't cheat. She pulled that off and she didn't cheat, because so often, when authors do like a big twist or like a big, pull the rug out from under you, they cheat, right? It wasn't always there, or they lied to you, or they had the character's point of view lie to you, which doesn't make sense unless it's in context, like with Gone Girl or Codename Verity, where the lie is the point. Again, I can't believe she pulled it off. So yes, please read The Thief and let me know what you thought.
I will. Well, thank you so much for coming in and talking with us today. I'm so excited to get to read your new book, House of Quiet, and it is coming out on September 9th. You were correct, by the way.
Oh, I was correct.
Are you allowed to talk about what else you have coming up, or do you not want to?
Nothing else that I have coming up has been announced yet. I do have another adult, sort of a sideways step from Lucy Undying, which is Dracula spin-off based on the character of Lucy Westenra. This one is a historical novel, sort of a murder mystery taking place between 1890 and 1900 as a woman chases a serial killer across Europe because she's the only one who has figured out that all of these bodies turning up in weird ways are from the same person who also murdered her father, who just so happens to be Abraham Van Helsing, the famous vampire hunter. I love that book. I'm so excited about it. There should be a cover and a title announced very soon. It's one of my favorite things that I've ever written, and that will come out March 2026. And then I have 2 other books coming out in 2026 that have not been announced yet that I am under non-disclosure agreements and cannot talk about them. But suffice it to say, they're both very exciting.
Well, then I guess our listeners are just going to have to follow you on social media.
Yeah.
What are your handles?
I am on Instagram and Threads as @author Kiersten White. I also have a website, kierstenwhite.com, that is only ever 9 to 12 months out of date. And that's where I am.
Well, there you have it. That's where you can find out what the next books that Kiersten's coming out with.
Yes.
All right. Kiersten, thank you so much for being here. It was wonderful talking with you. And I can't wait to have you back on next year when we have like 3 other books to talk about. It's going to be great.
Amazing. Thank you so much.
When she asks me how far we can take it, I tell her we can take it across the entire universe. You are my universe, not just a planet.
Erik, I gotta tell you, one of the things that had me a little nervous before we did this episode was, and we touched on this a little bit, does she really not want us to talk about Mr. Magic at all? Like, there was that kind of that, like, how do we approach this? But she was just so giving in that interview, like just giving of information, giving of passion, like, and it was really cool.
I didn't realize until after the fact, after I had like asked the question, like the really like personal question about it being like about her leaving the Mormon church. And I was like, oh, wait, this is like a big traumatic thing for a lot of people. And like, just because you're writing a book and putting it out to the world that is partially about your own trauma, it doesn't mean that you're like, okay, totally okay. And it's not even something I thought about, because for me, I'd be like, oh, all of my traumas, I'm going to work through it first and then put it into the book. But just hearing the way she kind of created it and was like, oh, okay, this is me kind of working through some shit. And then it was like, she was already under contract. So it's not like she could pull it back and be like, oh, I don't want to release this.
Yeah.
And just hearing her be like, oh, it was different when I released it and I realized I had to now talk about that.
Yeah. This is easily one of my favorite interviews with any guest we've had, and not just because of how much I love that book, but just her story is, like you said, very fascinating, very unique, and very different than I think a lot of the people we've talked to in the past. One of the all-time greats. Cannot wait to read her newest. But I think the bigger question, Erik, is what are we all reading right now? What are you currently reading?
I am reading Stephen King's new book, Never Flinch. It is about this guy who is killing people. He's killing 13 innocent people and 1 guilty person when he finds out that somebody was sentenced incorrectly in a trial and then killed in prison. And then it comes out later that he was actually framed and he was innocent. And one of King's new serial characters, Holly Gibney, gets involved in it while she is also being the bodyguard for this left feminist pundit who's also touring the Midwest and has death threats against her. So it's like these 2 stories are going to eventually come together. I don't know how it's going to happen because I'm like halfway through and they have not touched each other yet. So at some point, they're supposed to make sense that these 2 stories are in there. But right now, it seems very all over the place. And I'm just waiting to see how it lands.
All right. I just finished past guest. I believe it's Rex Ogle. Is that how that's pronounced?
Yeah.
I finished reading Ogle. I finished reading Embuela, Don't Forget Me. And holy shit, is that one of the like heaviest, most beautiful personal books I've read in a long time. You know, at the end of every year, I do like, here are the top 10 things I've read for this year, and I don't see a world where that's not in my top 3. Like that book I cruise, especially because I was reading it. I had to pick up Barb's kids from school, and the school that they go to has a parking lot that fits roughly 10 cars, and then it's just like fend for yourself street parking. So I left like an hour and a half early before they got out and was like, I'll just read it in the car. And I read the entire book in that like hour and a half that I was sitting in the car, just sobbing, reading it. It's so beautifully done.
Good. I love Rex.
Yeah, no, Rex rules. I hope that we can have, you know, we've kind of like nudged the door open a little bit with Jennifer in the past episode of return guests. I think we're at that point now where all bets are off. If they've got a new YA book coming out, it's time for them to come back on the show. So
I'd love to have Rex back on, because I got to meet him in person when I went to a book festival in Florida a couple of months ago.
Nice.
And he's even more fun to hang out with in person.
I was hoping we'd have a San Diego Comic-Con panel and we would have been able to meet a bunch of these people in person, but
maybe
not in the cards this year, unfortunately. We'll try again next year.
We'll keep doing episodes and we'll keep steadily growing our listenership.
That's the plan.
And you know how
I love
you can help us with that, listeners? By going on to YAOK and on YAOK Podcast on Instagram.
Yes.
And just let us know what you're reading. Share our stuff. Tell your friends about us. We're such a fun time here.
I had to do a fun edit the last time I was on the show because I was talking all about how you can get a very specific shirt on our dashery that this time is no longer there, but I think I edited it seamlessly enough. Yeah, but
I'm telling you, I still have not gotten that shirt, so I think Warner Brothers intercepted that package.
I'm gonna send some emails and be like, can we slightly redesign the hand on this and try again?
I feel like you can.
Yeah, there has to be. But anyway, that is for another day. We will be back next week with more YAOK.
Bye.
Paradise is back.
It's finally here.
In a new location, Costa Rica. There will be adventure, drama, and romance.
All gas, no brakes. That's my vibe.
Ready to find some love. But it wouldn't be paradise without surprises along the way.
These kids need to learn.
That's right. Your favorite Golden alums are crashing the beach.
We bring in a party, baby.
Bachelor in Paradise. New Mondays at 8, 7 Central on ABC and stream on Hulu.
You're listening to the Geekscape Network.